All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping right in to break down what on earth was going on in the markets in the final days of 2025, specifically on December 30th. So, you know how the market was all geared up for that classic holiday climb? The so-called Santa rally? Well, someone slammed on the brakes and the whole party just stopped. It's left investors kind of hanging in suspense as we close out the year.
You know, to really get a handle on what's happening, let's think of it like this. The market is this incredible, state of the art jet. It's got this super powerful AI fueled engine that just wants to climb. But the pilot? The pilot is being forced to fly really cautiously, trying to navigate through some seriously thick fog and some pretty nasty turbulence.
Okay, let's get into it. Here's our flight plan for today. We're going to unpack this whole story piece by piece, starting with the pilot's big problem and ending with what your own flight plan for 2026 could look like. First up, the pilot's dilemma. Let's just set the scene. Instead of that big year-end celebration we were expecting, the market has basically hit the pause button. It's chosen the super cautious path, and it's created this tense wait-and-see vibe all over Wall Street. So here's the bottom line. The market is basically frozen, and it's caught between two massive forces. On one hand, you've got the Federal Reserve pretty much arguing with itself over what to do with interest rates. And on the other, you've got new and pretty serious global conflicts flaring up. So let's head up to the cockpit and take a look at the dashboard. What are the main dials actually telling us about today's flight? How did the big indices really do? Well, it was a day of these tiny, hesitant drops across the board, which honestly perfectly captures that cautious mood. The S&P 500, our big benchmark for the whole market, ended down just 0.1%. It was basically treading water on really low holiday trading volume. The Nasdaq, which is packed with all those tech stocks, saw a slightly bigger dip, down about 0.25%. You can see investors starting to cash in some of their profits after a really fantastic year for AI stocks. And yep, the Dow also finished in the red. That makes it 4 days in a row of declines. That whole year-end momentum thing, it's completely fizzled out. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the split on this slide. It's pretty stark. Energy stocks actually rallied, climbing more than 0.5% because of some breaking news overseas. But at the exact same time, technology stocks dragged the whole market down, falling almost 0.75%. That's a really clear rotation happening under the surface. Okay, so we know what happened. Now let's really dig into the why. The market's basically flying towards two completely different storm fronts right now. One is brewing right inside the Federal Reserve, and the other one is rolling in from across the globe. And wow, this slide perfectly illustrates that internal storm. The latest notes from the Fed meeting showed a really serious 9-3 split among its members. And that's a big deal, because when they're that divided, they can't give us any clear signals. You've got the hawks, who are worried inflation's going to get stuck at this annoying 2.4% level, and they want to keep rates high. But then you've got the doves, who are afraid of a recession and want to start cutting rates, and fast. This fight basically leaves all of us flying blind into 2026. And while the Fed is busy arguing, that external turbulence is definitely getting worse. We have confirmed U.S. military action in South America, a major setback for peace talks in Eastern Europe, and things are really heating up in the U.S.-China tech war. Each one of these just adds another layer of risk and uncertainty to the pile. Okay, so beyond those huge flashing headlines, there are other important signals starting to cut through all that fog. Let's take a look at what they might be telling us about the risks ahead. First off, just look at the whiplash we're seeing in commodities. Silver and copper took a nosedive one day, then skyrocketed the very next. That kind of volatility is a massive red flag that inflation could be a huge story again in 2026. And at the same time, you have bond yields creeping up and housing prices coming in stronger than expected, which just makes the Fed's job even harder. Well, this whole mess has left the experts completely divided. I mean, you've got bulls like Wedbush who are still shouting about an AI software revolution, while at the same time, others like The Economist are warning everyone about a bumpy road. There is absolutely zero consensus on what the right move is here: tech, value, or just pure caution. So it's really no surprise that all this uncertainty has left the average investor stuck smack in the middle. The CNN Fear and Greed Index, it's parked right in neutral. We're not scared enough to sell everything, but we're definitely not greedy enough to start buying aggressively either. So how does all this uncertainty actually translate into a strategy?
Well, with so much fog clouding up the view, investors are basically charting two very, very different flight plans for the year ahead.
The aggressive flight plan is a bet that the AI engine in our jet is just too strong and that it's going to power right through the turbulence. That means focusing on things like robotics and software. The defensive plan, on the other hand, is all about getting ready for a longer, much bumpier ride. It's focused on real stuff like metals and energy to protect against inflation. And really, that's the key takeaway here. This fundamental conflict isn't going anywhere. You have this incredibly powerful, long-term growth story of AI and technology, and it is flying head-on into the very immediate, very real-world problems of stubborn inflation and global instability. Which leaves us with the final and most critical question as we head into the new year. Is the pilot going to trust that plane's powerful engines and just climb right through the fog? Or is caution going to win out, forcing them to throttle back and just wait for clearer skies? The answer to that is going to define 2026.